Hey guys, what's up? So today I want to be talking about the 12.1 patch that's coming out for TFT. And I know this is the first of many videos I'm going to be making on TFT. So if you guys don't know who I am, or maybe just know me from Eternal Return, I'm Tom Source, and I've been grinding out TFT for about almost 2 months now. I've peaked around 450 LP GM, and I'm currently sitting around 200 LP Masters. I'm not the best player of the game, but kind of decent. I feel like I know what I'm talking about, and I just kind of want to give my take anyways. So yeah, you can also watch me live over on Twitch. I'll link the description for that below. All right, with that out of the way, with a little shilling out of the way, let's talk about the patch. Now, right away, they say this patch isn't gonna be too big, which that's fucking bullshit. This, while it doesn't look like a lot right away, there's actually a ton of changes going on here. So let's go talk about that. So first of all, every single crest pretty much is being changed. Arcanist is now granting a Swain, so now you're gonna notice this trend is gonna the hearts are now gonna be granting more supporty units or frontline units. They don't want any of these emblems to be granting any automatic carries or units that are a little too strong. These would normally be like the 3 cost. We saw this quite a bit last patch with Chemtech specifically, just offering Zac, which usually completed like your web of synergies and was absolutely insane in the early game, just giving you an insane board to just streak with for most of stage 2 and a lot of stage 3. Now, that's going to be changed pretty dramatically. So we're going to be seeing Arcanist Heart now grants a Swain, Challenger Heart granting a Quinn, Protector Heart no longer grants Blitzcrack, it grants nothing now, which, I mean, you're only taking it for one composition anyways, let's be honest with each other, so like, you're only ever picking Protector Heart for Ligma, and that's as far as it's ever going. Scholar Heart is going to be granting Zyra instead of Lysandra, as we just previously mentioned. They don't want to be granting 3 cost units with these augments anymore. They're usually just a little bit too long, and like, if you got a Scholar Heart Lysandra and you're just able to throw early items on her, she just became this absolute crank of a carry. Scrap Heart now granting Blitzcrank instead of Echo, following the same philosophy there. Twin Shot Heart now grants Kog'Maw. Yeah, this was a really weird one that got memed that when the change originally came by. Like, Graves is a very solid unit, but when everything else is granting a 2 cost unit or a 3 cost unit and you just get Graves, you feel really bad. So I would imagine in the data, it probably wasn't taken very often, unless you were already like deep within the Twin Shot traits already. But it giving you Kog'Maw as being one of the only ones that are really going to still grant you that early game carry. But there are a couple other ones that will be doing so. Previously, this was on Mutant. So that might change things pretty significantly. Especially with like imagine you're playing like a Ligma already. Taking this would be kind of awkward because that's going to put you at 3 out of 4 twin shots. Because you're going to be playing Graves anyways since you want to be re-rolling for Graves. And he's actually a really good unit in general, one of the better units in that comp. So it makes you a lot stronger at level 7 specifically, in which you could complete the web of mutants and have 4 twin shot. But it just becomes really awkward since most of the game you are still going to be saying around level 5, level 6 range. So I actually kind of agree with this change. And mostly, only like, because this is one of the only ones that are giving you a carry rather than a support unit. But all the other ones are giving you 2 costs. This should also follow that philosophy. And there's no other 2 costs you can put. There's either Graves or Kog'Maw. There's no in between. You can't make this and give you a GP or the game's over. Assassin Crest is now granting a Talon, which this one we're going to go back to in a bit. Because Talon and Imperial are getting super buffed. Imperial's getting a buff. Talon's getting a buff. RFC's getting a buff. Talon is going to be probably the premier unit of this patch. He's already one of the best early game units in the game, especially when you're lost streaking, to where he could just easily, always consistently kill off at least 1 unit. And if you were to just use him as an item holder, he could consistently kill off 2 units pretty often. So Talon being part of Assassin Crest makes sense. I don't think you want this to be Katarina, because you probably want to take if it's Katarina. I would happily take Assassin's Crest if it gave me a Talon. And even before, they said in the data during Mortdog's rundown of the previous patch, he said Katarina is actually one of the worst performing units in the game at the moment. And I think we can all see why. Katarina was dominant for a long time, and they made some changes to her, and we saw the meta slow down a lot. Maybe Katarina not too appealing, and it's just better units in general to hold their items. Talon, on the other hand, just keep your eye on him. We're going to talk about him more later. Arcanist Crest, now granting a Swain instead of a TF. Swain's also another unit that will be getting buffed in this patch, along with Imperial, so definitely going to be really interesting seeing, those changes come by. And the same thing is kind of applying for these other ones. Challenger is now granting, Challenger Crest also granted Quinn, sending us Challenger Heart. Imperial Crest is going to be granting Swain over a Talon, and Munich Crest no longer Kog'Maw. It doesn't grant you any unit whatsoever. Scrap Crest now also grants a Blitzcrank instead of Echo. Of course, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I got offered an early Scrap Crest, I would take it, because when they offer you these three cost units in particular with the Crest, it made completing the traits way too easy and created very dominant boards in the early game. We're still going to be seeing this next patch specifically with Bodyguard Crest, as it will grant you a Leona still, and it's really easy just to find two other bodyguards, right? Because I have Leona plus 1 bodyguard emblem, and all you need is like a Poppy and a Darius or a Blitzcrank, and that's 3 units you can find as 1 or 2 costs, and it's very, very easy to snowball off that board. I'm sure you guys saw a lot of that board before the meta slowed down a ton, or just whenever anyone gets bodyguard crest, you pretty much always take it. So good. Ardent Sensor, the bonus attack speed is getting increased to 50%. It's not exactly the greatest augment to take, especially being I apologize. Being at the tier that it is in, it doesn't exactly feel as impactful as the other augments in the game. So this is definitely something that I think makes a lot of sense. I think particularly the comps is going to be affecting is more the sustain boards, stuff with like the bodyguard enchanter boards. Obviously, you need to run enchanters for it to even work, but enchanters can fit in a lot of comps. But you could also potentially see this maybe splashed in the challengers of Yone. We do see those boards sometimes where you just get like very expensive 4-cost boards, and you're just running, you know, like a Yone with some Academy, maybe some enchanters in the back line, and that can make Yone just pop off. But more commonly, you'll probably see this like early game like Tristana boards with the Lulus, the Jannas, the Orianas, just buffing up the Terrix, just buffing up the Tristana, making her go crazy. You also see this, again, when you transition off that board into a Jhin board later on in the game, the Ardent Sensor does do a lot of effect there. But it's still generally not as strong as the other options. So normally, you will never take this as your first augment. This is normally a second or third augment anyways. Ascension damage amplification after 15 seconds is 50% now. Dude, this thing was at 70, at least 70, 75% a couple patches ago, and now it's down to 50. It's lost a quarter of its original power. This augment is ridiculous. Sorry, not a quarter, more than a quarter. This augment has been ridiculous. It's just such a boring augment. And we saw Mordog in his rundown of this augment as well, of the previous patch. He talks about how the main issue he has with it is that you keep seeing similar board states, especially like when you get this augment show up over and over and over, because it is a basic augment. It is a gray one. You just kind of pick it. I know I do. If I know my board has enough of a front line, which it should for most comps in the game, or it could just stall out long enough, I'm going to pick Ascension, because there's no reason for me not to pick Ascension. If the fight goes long enough to where my big burst carry can just do one final cast and Ascension's proccing, you probably win the fight. And it's very boring. I don't like that. I don't think you think about it very often. I feel like Ascension needs to be balanced up when we're like, I only want to take this if I'm playing a stall composition. So like maybe, I mean obviously we all know it sucks, like 6 bodyguard, right? 6 bodyguard, I would love Ascension, and you have like just bodyguards going crazy, dealing, you know, little bits amount of damage. Now it's buffed up, and you have like 1 carry in the back line. Stuff like that I think is very cool. But when it's every composition takes this because it's just broken, it's not very fun to deal with. Cybernetic implants, bone health for equipped units, going down across the board. I'm not gonna lie, I think for the gray tier, I don't think you're picking this anymore. Maybe if it's the worst choice. But of course, this is a cop-out augment. This isn't something you take because you want to. It's something you take because the other ones aren't that great. Sometimes you do take it because you want to, because you're more like into scrap. And if you're playing like, you know, a 4 scrap board early game and you get like a golden cybernetic, you definitely pick it. Prismatic, you're probably not picking most of the time. It's not that it's bad, it's that there's better options in general for your composition. Unless, of course, you're playing like a scrap board in which this thing is ridiculous. Or if you have cybernetic mutants, then, of course, you know, the effects are just additive and it's really, really strong there. So it's not specific board states where cybernetic implants is really good. I think the gray one is not the greatest. I'm not sure. I think it's 10 AD that it gives you as well. So like 150 health, 10 AD. Not my favorite, but I think I'm more than fine with the gold and cyber and prismatic versions. Duet bonus health going down. Look, there's not much to say. Duet was terrible because it didn't do anything originally, but then it got buffed to have the 500 HP on it. 500 HP is a lot, and when we were playing a metagame in which Socalite was super overtuned, you knew your board was going to have Socalite anyway, so if you saw this on 1-4, you were probably taking it. Lifelong Learning Scholar reworked, now guaranteed grants Scholar 2 ability power after each combat, and an additional 2 ability power if they survive combat. Yeah, no one took this thing. No one ever took this thing. And they have only taken this once And that was 2 patches ago. God, may have been 3 patches ago, where I hit a Heimerdinger on opener and I got access to lifelong learner or lifelong learning, and I was like, okay, this is pretty good. Outside of that, I just really I've never taken this. This is definitely a good change. Like, if your early game carry dies, which it probably will a lot of the time, or else you have like an insane board, there was no reason to ever pick lifelong learning. It was just, no. So this change should help out quite a bit. And I think with some of the changes that we're going to be seeing in this patch, lifelong learning might actually be a lot more competitive. Because I think the primary carry for lifelong learning is going to be a lot better now. A lot better than you might think. Makeshift armor getting buffed. I don't see why this is getting buffed. I think makeshift armor is fantastic already. There are a couple of specific board states where I think makeshift armor really stands out. And that's with bruisers. And that's with innovators. Innovators giving you the extra unit. Bruisers just having more health. The armor just amplifies that stat all around. And of course, bodyguards can, use that to great effect, but it's a little worse in that regard. But this thing was already really good. I would happily take any tier of makeshift armor depending on my board state. Any tier whatsoever. Even in the beginning of the game, I'm just like, my other options aren't bad. I never felt bad about it. It was more of a, yeah, okay, sure. Maybe I'll just lean into those packages that could more abuse this. And especially with like things like Chemtech Urgot being in the metagame, bruisers were very, very effective at using this to high success. Portable Forge armor option, Death Defiance now grants 20% Omnivap. I'll be real, I don't know the stats of this thing. I rarely play Portable Forge. Like, so many prismatics are better than Portable Forge. I'm sorry. I think the only time where Portable Forge is really, really good is if you get on 1-4 and you're looking for like that specific niche item to make your board absolutely cracked. But for the most part, I don't think this matters too much. I mean, 20% Omnivap is good. I don't even know the stats on Death Defiance at the moment. So I need to look at that to really justify it. Spellblade Empowered attack ability power, scaling after casting. It goes up to 225 from 200. This is interesting. Because here's the thing. People might see this and think like, oh wait, this is already really good. And it was okay. It's not bad in the slightest. I think the big thing here is that the only board you're ever playing this is with Arcanist, right? Because you're getting it offered later on if you're playing Arcanist. And it's not even like, damn, I hit the nuts with Arcanist. You just kind of hit something that's like, okay. And you're happy to take, but you're not going crazy about it, which is kind of upsetting. Like, I feel like if I'm playing the Arcanist board and I get the Arcanist Exodia augment, I should be cracked. So I think this thing deserves the buff that it's getting. And we should be seeing more Arcanists, hopefully, with this patch. We should be seeing a lot more of everything with this patch, with the changes that they're making. So far, I'm pretty happy with this patch, not gonna lie. Stand United attack and ability power per active trait going down. Look, not much to say. Handshake, augments, every tier was amazing. Nearly always the correct choice if you got it. It was sometimes just guaranteed you a top 2. This augment was insane for the late game. And if you know how to play around it, this thing would do some crazy, crazy things. Sunfire Board, max health burn, going down to 16%. It's funny. I don't feel like we saw a lot of Sunfire Board. I don't know. Now maybe you guys can tell me in the comments if you've been dealing with a lot. But I know in my games, Sunfire Board is usually something I personally don't really take. I don't like the augment that much. And the fact that it's getting nerfed is, I'm probably just not going to take it as often anymore either. Like, I rarely took it as is unless it was my only option. Or I got offered it later in the game and I had no healing reduction and I needed that healing reduction. But aside from that, it's just, It's pretty shit now, I think. I think it was pretty bad before in comparison to all the other gold augments. I think it's pretty shit now. I think the only argument you can make for this thing is you take it at 1-4 because your other gold augments suck and you have a win streak board and it amplifies that. But aside from that, I wouldn't take it. Woodland Charm copy going up. Yeah, Woodland Charm is something you see a lot. It's an okay augment. Nothing too crazy to run home about. And it's definitely something like if you have like a 2-star Scion or Gallia or something, this thing could do crazy work. But for the most part, it's definitely something you use to win streak early on, or if your other options are just like, meh. It's never really, I see this augment, I'm like, damn, it's time. You know? Like, that type of situation doesn't really happen very often. These are like just, okay, this one's pretty shit now, it's okay. Traits. Let's talk about traits. Alright, so we all know that our metagame consists of comprised of Socalite boards capping out, a lot of Chemtech stuff happening, And that's a lot of the metagame at the moment. A lot of the 4-cost units got moved out of the metagame. A lot of early game boards were kind of shit. It was just a very, very, very slow and greedy meta, and a lot of the augments were towards that. So I'm hoping the changes we see here help with that. Because right now, personally, this is the first patch I've played of set 6 that I just kind of like took a break and just mentally tapped out. Like, I just stopped climbing. I stopped caring. I stopped trying to improve. It was so unfun. You guys can tell me how you feel about it, but man, I hated this patch with a passion. But rant over. Let's go talk about the traits. Chemtech damage reduction percentage going down to 20. Absolutely need to happen. Chemtech max health regen is going down from 5.7 and 9. Oh, no, sorry. Going down 5.7. No, wait. Going down. Wait, no, timeout. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's going up. It does going down. I don't know why it does going down. It's going up across the board. Yeah, this makes sense. So right now, you're probably thinking, if you just watched and haven't seen like the current like board states for Chemtech, you don't really play 5 Chemtech unless you have a Chemtech augment, and then you try to squeeze the 5 Chemtech in. But for the most part, your final board is always going to be 3 Chemtech, because there's like, you get 25% damage reduction, increased attack speed, and health regen. Like that, the attack speed's also going down at 1 and getting buffed, or at 3 and getting buffed across the board. They want you to go deeper into the Chemtech pool to make these boards pop off, because like this, when it like these things suck. Like there's no reason to go Chemtech 5 and play worse units than playing like a 2-star Janna, for example, right? Why would I ever want to do that? It just didn't make any sense. Imperial Tower bonus is now getting buffed up to 80% from 75 and 150%. Look, 5 Imperial is not really a thing you ever see ever. I've had 5 Imperial with like spats, and it's the units you have to run are fucking everywhere, and it sucks. Like you're running what? You're running a Talon, a Samira, a Scion. Like where are my traits? My traits are everywhere. A Swain, there's not one trait in there that goes together. And then you're running fucking +1, right? Something to complete the web with. So 5 Imperial is still probably something you're not taking unless you get like a bunch of augments or a bunch of spats. 3 Imperial on the other hand. Now that's spicy. Because right now, even, and has been since the beginning, Samira reroll is not bad. It's not a bad comp. It's definitely like an okay comp, like a B tier comp. This might push it up a bit, especially with some of the changes we're seeing, where these could definitely help out quite a bit. Talon being part of the Imperial package could also be one of the primary carries. Now we hit a lot of Talon through the game. You could build around him and use him as your primary carry for the early to mid game and then pivot off of him. But this Imperial stuff is pretty fucking interesting, because that's for the Tyrant in particular. We are seeing, you know, the bonus damage go up to 80%, and then Imperial units bonus damage also going up at the secondary one. But like, again, who cares, right? I'm sorry, I don't think Imperial 5 is going to be a real thing. Imperial 3 is definitely going to be what it is. Imperial 5 happens, sure, great, but Imperial is already like okay if you can hit it. If not, it was just like, yeah, sure, I'm here, you know, like it was a cute option, but not something that I would ever really run. But now that Imperial's getting like 4 buffs this patch, I think 4 to 5 buffs this patch, we might see a lot more of it. Innovator Mechanical Bear is getting buffed. Innovator Mechanical Bear Armor and MR is getting buffed as well. Alright, why is this happening? Well, since they decided that Innovator Heart cannot be an augment that you could choose at the beginning of the game, no one's really running Innovator. And it's very, very hard to get Innovator 5 early game now. So normally you're stuck on Innovator 3 with like the Ezreal, Singe, Zillion plus Heimerdinger, but you have to find the Seraphine now to go into Innovator 5, which is pretty difficult unless you got like a ton of traits or something, you know, something in that regard in which you super high rolled. So by the time you get the bear, it felt pretty shit. So they kind of want to make this like a more worthwhile to get into. The dragon is like fine as is, but this never felt that great getting. Like the games I played Innovator and I had like a great early game, and I got like the bear later on, I'm just like, why didn't I just play better units? Because I'm running like a Heimerdinger and a Zillion. I'm just like, why didn't I just stick at the Scarab and just go into like better units, right? So definitely they want you to play it more now, and I think from watching Bebe, he was playing a little bit this morning, it definitely looked like the buffs did matter. So let's keep that in mind going into the next patch. Especially, you know, like we mentioned earlier, we saw with makeshift armor. Makeshift armor is very, very good at that composition. Or even lifelong learning, hey? The Heimerdinger carry. Alright, so Socialite 2 mana regen per second going down to 3. Thank God. Socialite 2 was the equivalent of Scholar 4, and that shit made no fucking sense whatsoever. This thing was crazy. Like, so many units were abusing this. Like, Fiora carry was a thing because of this. It might still be very much so a carry because of this. But, like, there was no reason why this thing had to give you 5 mana per second. Why? It was making any unit just an absolute crank right away, right? You could put, like, Victor on it with no mana items and on Scholar 2, and just, it would cast a couple times in a fight, right? It should never be this good. This should be a generic trait, and it should never be as strong as it was. So I'm really happy with this nerf. I'm honestly surprised Socialite 3 didn't get nerfed. Or Socialite 1 either, or the units themselves get nerfed, but hey, it is what it is. Syndicate 7's getting buffed, quite big. Honestly, even the Syndicate comps like Syndicate, Shaker, Reroll. Syndicate 7 wasn't really something you went for, it was more of like, hey, that's nice, because you're generally running pretty poor units that don't synergize with your team anyways, so Syndicate 7 wasn't really that good. But it will be a lot better now in Exodia, a trait even if you like get spats to run with it. Yordle odds change. We're seeing Yordle 1 going to 70%, Yordle 2 going to 20%, and Yordle 3 going to 10%. So why is this happening? Also, Yordle 6 mana reduction is going to 25%. So Yordle's buffed across the board. Why? Are Yordles completely trash? No. They were okay as is, but they were being abused for economy mostly because, again, what is TFT? It's a game about money management. So just getting a bunch of free money because you hit a Yordle opener was pretty stupid. They want you to obviously play the composition if you hit it, or if you hit specific augments, let's say like Hyper Roll or Trade Sector, right? They want you to play Yordle. And especially you get like a Yordle opener, you get a bunch of 2-star Yordles, you get the Yordle opener, you're generating more Yordles, like, oh man, what if I go for Yordle 6? I have the Yordle items, I have Heimerdinger carry, you know, I want to go for that. So now, but the issue ended up happening when you play Yordle is your bench would get stuck a lot. You would roll down and you'd be saying on like 5 Ziggs, you know, 4 Poppies, 3 Tristanas, 2 Lilina, and you always get stuck. This helps alleviate that. Also, you know, just buffing them in general, 25%, another 5% for mana reduction is pretty damn good. But it also, what it does is nerf people who are playing Yordles for a loose streak opener and trying to use that to generate more eco. So sometimes you're just playing Yordle opener and you'll be like, oh, I got a Vex. And you're just selling the Vex for 3 gold. You don't care that you got a Vex. But when you're playing Yordle and you hit the 10% Vex, you're like, oh, let's go. You know, Vex goes in, right? So I think this is a very good change, and it helps, you know, alleviate the bench issues. It makes it a lot easier. You should finish your 1 cost before you get the 2 costs, and 2 costs before you get the 3 costs, and so on and so forth. It should help out in majority of cases. You should be able to clear out the bench more often to be able to play Yordle 6 without having to sell your entire, you know, just like min-max your board and your bench in really weird ways to try and like get your pairs to pair up, right? And of course, the buff is just good. Champions, tier 1. We're seeing Talon 3 getting nerfed, and that's it. It's just because of Ligma. That's the only comp that runs it. Not much else to say. Slide nerf to Ligma. Cool. Champion 2. Swain. Yeah. Yep. Weakest, to talk about the weakest trait of 1124, appears in the even number buffs to push into viability, with Swain already being weak. Buffing him is an easy call. Yeah, Swain is not a good unit. You do not see Swain anywhere unless someone randomly hit a 2-star Swain in the shop because nobody else picked it early on into the game, or they're playing an Arcanist board. Swain is just normally just a trait bot, and that's it. He's meant to be the premier frontline for Imperial, and one of the frontline units for for Arcanist, but that just kind of doesn't happen. So we're seeing Swain go, the starting mana is going from 40 to 75 instead of 80. Cool. Swain's Death Hand healing per enemy hit is going up across the board. Sure, should help him out survive quite a bit, and if you play him as like a secondary tank or as a mainline tank, he should be able to survive a lot longer. Tier 3 champions. Heimerdinger. This change is huge. So, one of the biggest issue of Heimerdinger wasn't his damage, and so I'm really glad they didn't address his damage, because his damage, when itemized, he was perfectly fine. His biggest issue is that sometimes he would just fucking walk up and kill himself. Like, I would be playing Heimerdinger, and he would just die, and I don't get it. Like, he would just walk up and kill himself, and it would blow my mind. So Heimerdinger attack range is going up to 4. He's now you can blackline him, you can corner him, and thank God, you can finally just, you don't have to trap him anymore, so he just doesn't kill himself. So this is a really, really good change. This is normally your primary carry for Scholars. This is normally your primary carry for Yordles, and especially with the Yordle change, with him even getting more mana reduction, Heimerdinger is going to be one hell of a carry with this following patch. Two compositions you can fit into. You can also put him in the Innovator board as a primary carry. So you can put this dude on 3 different compositions, and he will do amazing. So yeah, Heimerdinger is going to be probably one of the lookout units for next patch. Malzahar's damage is going down at rank 1. Not much to say. I still think Malzahar is going to be insane, but he's getting double nerfed because one of the primary things for Malzahar was the Morello, him being a Morello holder, and Morello is also getting nerfed this patch, so we'll see. I think this will put Malzahar in kind of where he needs, and this Malzahar 1 in particular, because I play Blue Streak boards. You can sub to the channel if you haven't already, because we're going to be having a video where I got coached by a challenger friend of mine, where I was playing Mercenaries, because I kept refusing to play it, and I had a Malzahar 1 with no synergies, with just a Morello and a blue buff, and it started one-streaking for like 5 rounds straight, for like all of stage 3. It was really stupid. It was really, really stupid. But yeah, this needs to happen. Tier 4. While not the strongest unit in patch 11.24, Seraphine is being inadvertently nerfed through our nerfed Socalite 2 and Morello Nomicon. Against below, so we're shipping a larger buff here to account for these changes. Our Urgot changes nerf his interactions with items like Ginzo's Range Blade, Rudan's Hurricane, and Static Shiv. That'll leave his foes feeling crabby. So yeah, Seraphine max mana is going, max mana is being reduced. Her starting mana staying the same. It's just a slight little buff. Seraphine Encore's damage and healing is getting buffed at all ranks, most notably getting buffed by 50 on rank 2. Urgot Purge now counts as a base attack every second shot, and now being moved to every third shot instead of every second shot. So yeah, this is just changing how he interacts with certain items, making the Pikachu Urgot thing not as effective, just making Runettes not as effective as him. I don't think this is going to be too crazy. I think where this change is really, really going to affect them is when you see, if you're not playing deeper into Chemtech and getting like more of that attack speed anyways. I think Urgot is still going to be fine. It's still going to be a very strong composition. I still think like the Chemtech Bruiser board is still going to be very, very powerful. It just might be a little more reliant on getting like that Chemtech spat and, dipping into more to Chemtech 5. I think that's more in a situation where you'll be playing this board. But Urgot himself, I think is a healthy change. And yeah, I still think it'll be a fine composition, probably more in line with the other 4-cost carry boards. Champions tier 5. Let's see what we get. We have Galio, critical strike, slam bonus damage is going down yet again. They don't want Galio to be a carry. It's fun while it's cute while it lasts, but like an impossible tech to kill that just slaps your board to death. It's not a thing that should be happening. But they're still leaving it, so hey, they just think it's a little too strong. Galio Colossal Entrance base stun is going up to compensate for his DPS nerf, especially at the first rank, to make him a little bit better. Kaisa health going down, fantastic. Kaisa's ability is losing damage at rank 1 and 2, and her starting mana is getting nerfed. And I could have sworn I read yesterday. I don't know if I guess it didn't ship out the final patch. I thought I saw from Mortdog's video that she also shoots less missiles. I'm going crazy. Yeah, I'm not seeing it anywhere. So I'm not sure if that change never went through, but I guess where she saw like 1 less missile now or something. But yeah, well, regardless, Kaisa changes need to happen. This was the patch of Kaisa. She was the best unit in the game by far. Best 5 costs in the game. Every board was just everyone playing super greedy, lost streak boards into Kaisa, win streak boards into Kaisa. It was really, really, really silly. Morello Kaisa was just carrying. It was not fun. Nobody liked dealing with it. If you like this patch, you're a psychopath. This board was so stupid. So stupid. I could go on a rant for this one forever. So again, if you want to watch me, check out the description. I'll probably be ranting about it live tomorrow. Tom Kench Devour damage reduction is down 30%. Also, again, Tom Kench was very strong. Still is. He is definitely like meant to be a support unit and a front line, but he ends up just like also being kind of a DPS unit too. So he kind of does a little bit of everything, especially with 2-star when you find him early enough and they're able to like feed him. So yeah, a little bit of a nerf, kind of needed. Tom's Kench at 3-star will now gain 20 times usual stats when fed an ally unit. Yeah, I've had a 3-star Kench this set. It didn't do shit. It just gave me too many items, but like him himself, I was like, sure. That's kind of underwhelming. Meanwhile, my buddy got 3-star Yumi and it just like spun and wiped the board. I'm like, that's so much cooler. But yeah, no, this is cool. You know, when I feed him a fucking 2-star unit now, it's just gonna give me a million stats. Items. GA. Health on revive going down to 250. That is, hey, need to happen. GA was way too strong. I'm still a little upset that, what's it called? That the interaction still exists for most of the champions. And I'm sure it's just a coding nightmare. That's something you could just get rid of right away, right? To where, like, you know, Kaisa being GA and still cast. Like, that stuff is really annoying. GA's, like they say up here, it's meant to be a built-in aggro drop, but, like, the biggest thing I've noticed is that GA, what it ends up doing is allowing units to continue casting like Urga, like Kaisa, like Yone, and they're just able to kill a bunch of units and sometimes squeeze out the fight win, or they're able to just, you know, just kill like 2-3 extra units and take less damage from the loss. And we saw everyone using GA, so pretty much every loss was just like 1 unit losses instead of like a 3, 4, 5 unit loss, which was kind of ridiculous. Morello, true damage is going down. Pretty damn big nerf, 2.5 to 2% a second. Morello's pretty much a must-have in every composition. If you didn't have it, you were going AFE. Not much else to say about that. Rapid fire cannon, total attack speed going up. Yeah, so when I mentioned Talon in the beginning of this video, this is one of the items that Talon really, really likes. RFC is extremely strong on Talon. Allows him to usually stay safe or just hit like a corner unit when he's not able to touch it. Just, you know, keep him out of danger from out of the aggro range. And all Talon really wants is attack speed. So like an RFC like Gunblade Talon's, that's beautiful, right? With Imperial being buffed, with Talon being buffed, with Swain being buffed, with RFC being buffed, we just saw like kind of a quadruple buff on our boy Talon overall on Imperial. So I'm curious to see where this patch leads them, but this is a good buff. No one was really using RFC. Nobody. So unless you have like too many damn bows, rarely did I ever see an RFC. People would just not even slam it. They would just hold it or scrap the bow. Not even worth it. Sunfire K proc rate going down to two times a second, but happens every 2 seconds, and the true damage is going down 2%. Yeah, they don't like that 2.5% number. They want it to be less damage with this like burning true damage stuff. It's a little ridiculous. Sunfire wasn't exactly used because it would kill off a belt, which it needed for Morello's. So yeah, we'll probably see it more this patch specifically because now it kind of fills a different niche. But with the last patch, we really did not see Sunfire Cape at all. ZZ Rot is being buffed across the board in terms of its health throughout the stages except stage 2. I don't think we're going to be seeing this item. I really don't. I don't think ZZ Rot really adds a lot. It kills off a bow. I believe it's a bow and a belt. Which the only composition I would ever take this in is like Ferocious Appetite Mutants. And not that like cheeky like build 5 of this stuff. Like just if I have it and I'm already deep into Ferocious Appetite, I'm like, okay, I'll build it, right? Because it makes sense. Or if I never want to slam this item. Because I am killing off 2 very big components, right? And it's kind of like the biggest issue with this. Like, there are better tank items. And the belt itself can become, like, if I have a belt, there's a good chance I'm already playing into AD. Or I'm using the belt into, like, more of a flex item. I'm probably not building this in the CZ Rot. So the only times I'll ever use this is, like, that Ferocious Appetite example. Or, like, I really need extra front line. And I just don't have a choice. And I'm in AP. Like, that's the only time I'll ever do this. And I already have, like, a Morello's or a Sunfire Cape or something. Augments. So we're seeing Shrug It Off, max health regen percentage going up to 3%. Not very good, let's be honest. It's just something that we wouldn't really ever see. Very, very rarely if you're like a 6 bruiser board and you get off, you're like, oh yeah, this is some nice stuff. But even then, it didn't feel that great. It felt like okay, like a worse underdogs in every sense of the word. It was just kind of there like, yeah, sure, I guess. But now they made it 3%, which honestly, that's a pretty big buff. So I am curious to see where it ends up. I think it's actually going to be playable now and something that you will take once you have like a good bruiser board. Smoke Bomb tooltip now properly reflects the damage reduction applied to the excess damage from the instance of damage that triggered the stealth. My brain did not process that. Okay, just a tooltip that properly reflects everything. Cool. Damage reduction is going down to 80%. Really? We're adding the hidden stealth feature to the tooltip and using it as a balance lever to illustrate a very small nerf. TLDR Smoke Bomb is microscopically worse. I mean, yeah. I like the biggest thing about Smoke Bomb is the aggro drop. and the fact that it cleanses your sins. It is a fantastic augment, so I'm not going to say anything about that. I think it definitely did need a little bit of a nerf, but the parts that make it really strong is still going to stay there. Sunfire weak spot are no longer mutually exclusive. Oh, we're just not being offered together? It wouldn't make sense, I guess. Probably like you get offered like Sunfire Board on 1/4, and then they just wouldn't offer you weak spot anymore because of healing reduction. That's interesting. I guess now they could be offered. Metamorphosis, attack, damage, and ability power growth going up to 2 and 4. I still don't think this thing is going to be very good. I think it's probably like still the weakest mutant by far. Maybe the 4 is good enough. We'll see. I'm not exactly too sure about that one. It is double what it currently is, but we'll see. Champions, Garen attack damage going up 70. Yeah, Garen's just like the worst one cost in the game right now, not even close. And he's getting a max mana buff, so starting mana is going down, but max mana is 100. So here's the thing, like Garen 1 and Garen 2 fucking suck. Garen 3 is really good. Like really, really, really good. So this overall, massive buff. For our boy Garen, actually makes him a little bit of a unit. This doesn't change the fact that Garen 2 is still kind of weak. Doesn't change the fact that Garen 3 is really, really strong. But Garen 3 has only really played a 1 composition anyway, so I'm assuming it's probably fine in their data. Well, I'm sure we'll see more of like the Kog'Maw Ligma thing come back next patch, but we'll see. As you know, the meta probably gets a little more aggressive and like more into that just playing strongest board and not just saying they're loose streaking the entire time for Socalite bullshit. Alawi is getting 2 buffs. Her damage ability, or her damage portion of her ability is getting buffed across the board, and the healing is getting buffed across the board too. Yeah, or it's getting buffed at rank 3 specifically. Yeah, Alawi is just not a unit that really matters too much. Like she could perform really well in stage 2, but like literally starts falling off like once you hit stage 3. She's normally just a mercenary trait bot or a bruiser trait bot, and even if you were like playing back a couple patches ago, like Trundle reroll, you generally just didn't give a shit about Alawi. Like if you found the Alawi 3, great, but you were still selling it the moment you found something better. Yeah, Alawi is just not that great. I mean, this buff should help her out a little bit, but I don't expect many great things out of this unit. But to be fair, hey, this buff, pretty good. Pretty dang good. We're probably still not saying Alawi 3s, let's be honest with each other. Kassadin, Null Sphere, damage reduction is going down. More Kassadin. Kassadin, Null Sphere, damage reduction, duration is going up. I think this is, I mean, it's just a little bit of a power shift. Not much else to say. I guess they just don't want Kassadin to just sit there and just, like, not die when he has some tank items. And again, this is specifically targeted towards the Ligma comp. So that is an interesting way to change Kassadin. And I think it's fine. Twisted Cards damage is going up. This is a compensation buff for the Morello change. Or for the Morello nerf in particular. Kog'Maw barrage damage is just being 888 across the board. I mean, look. Yeah, sure. I guess they don't want Kog'Maw 3 to be too good. They're like, Kog'Maw 1's a little too weak. Kog'Maw 2 is fine. Let's just balance it out. I mean, look, again, you're still, if you're playing Ligma, you're still 3-starring your Kog'Maw. It's still really important. That is your primary carry of the composition. And you're going to need him for the base stats anyway, so the fact that it's going down a bit is probably perfectly fine. I am surprised they did this change. They're just nerfing his base stats, though. That is, like, Kog'Maw 3's stats in particular. So that is very interesting to see. Talon attack speed, so this is the last change of the Imperial stuff. Talon attack speed is getting buffed, which is just like, this unit's going to be cracked, I am pretty sure, come tomorrow, so yeah. Zillion Time Bomb slow duration, going up to 4 seconds. Instead of 3. Yeah, Zillion's just kind of a trait bot. No matter where you put him, if he's a Clockwork, he's a trait bot. If you put him in Innovators, he's a trait bot. He's a support unit. So he doesn't feel really good. And Mortdog says in the post-mortem for the previous patch that Zillion just thematically didn't feel very good. So they want to buff him up just a little bit. They don't think this is going to break him or anything. He's just going to be an okay unit and just kind of a little bit of a buff. He wasn't really doing anything. Like even in Innovators, you would see people just be like sell off a Zillion pair to make an eco breakpoint because it was like, it's Zillion, who cares? He doesn't do anything. And they're correct. Tier 3. A couple more Morello Nomicon compensation buffs for champions who are dependent on the success of the item. So that means Echo's getting the buff, Lissandra's getting the buffed, Vex is getting a buff. But Samira is not a Morello carrier. T is an Imperial unit that also needs the buff. So again, now we're seeing more Imperial buffs, in which I think was the only good Imperial unit at all. Like, kind of like to build a composition around. Samira reroll was kind of already a composition. And like Sin Samira reroll was also a composition. So I am a little surprised that this is the case. Like, hitting an early 2-star Samira can carry you very, very nicely. And I think with the Imperial buffs, like I keep repeating myself, with the Imperial buffs, with Samira buffs, with even like the RFC buff. Like little things like this are gonna make the composition a lot more competitive than what they already are. And if you like hit the units now, it may be worth playing. And I think specifically the Talon ones are gonna be really big. Samir, of course, I mean, an HP buff is always big, especially when you look at things like, I believe All for One is one where, like, your Imperial units get HP. Like, stuff like that is always really huge, right? Champions, tier 4, are on max health, or max mana buff, going on to 130, still 50 starting mana. Scion Decimating Smash is going to 2.5%. Scion Decimating Smash is getting a little more damage at the first rank, and Yone health is dropping a bit. So yeah, talk about this in Postmortem as well. Scion 1 is the worst unit in the game by far. Just not much else to say. Scion 1 just fucking sucks. Like, the knockup is fine, but like, there's not, like, he's just not very good. He's not very tanky. He's taking up 2 slots. Also, he's like a really early Scion 2. But you're like level 5 Scion, or Scion 1, sorry. He's just really bad. So they want to buff him up to make him a little more effective. Tier 5 units, we're seeing Victor is just getting a slight little buff on his max mana. This is a compensation for Socialite 2, I would imagine. So now it's on 140 instead of 150. He just gave him a little bit of a buff. I think it's fine. He wasn't exactly used. I am surprised, though. What I am very surprised here that we're not seeing with the tier 5 units in particular is more of the, like, AD side get buffed. I guess we're assuming with, like, the Socialite nerfs and with the Kaisa nerf directly, where they don't need to buff things up. Like, I feel like Jinx, or like maybe like Jinx 1 needs a buff, right? Maybe I'm going crazy. Because like we're nerfing Chemtech already. We nerf forgot. I feel like Jinx 1 definitely gets hit due to that, right? She's just already kind of more of a trait bot. Unless you have Jinx 2, she just jumps in and suicides most of the time. She's normally not that great of a unit. Normally it's a Jinx 2 that starts popping off when she's itemized, or she has Chemtech spat. So I am surprised that we're not seeing that change in particular. I do agree with the Victor change. I think he definitely needed a little bit of loving. He wasn't being played at all. Other units, like I feel like maybe Lux was probably on that table as well, but I think they're assuming with all the other changes happening that some of the other compositions are going to be coming back into the metagame since it won't be as slow anymore, and Arcanist did get a little bit of buff, so Lux is probably fine. But the tier 5 units kind of really is surprising. Like, I agree with the Kenshin nerf. I agree with the Kaisa nerf. I agree with the Victor buff. But, like, seeing Jinx not get buffed is a little weird. Jace, I probably wouldn't touch just because I think he's in a good spot. I think Jace 1 is fine. I think it's a good trait bot. I think Jace backline is really good. It's insane even. And once you have, like, items on him, Jace 2. But overall, just a little surprised. No Jinx buffs. Very interesting. Items, Chalice, the game buff 35%. I don't think it matters. You're probably still not building it very often. But you're probably feel a little happier getting off, like a dragon or something, or a carousel. Static Shiv, attack speed is going at 10%. And then we have a bunch of bug fixes and hyper, yada yada. I mean, there's anything crazy here. Eternal Winter no longer applies for temporary VFX. Below units frozen. Fix an issue where Garen and blue buff would stop gaining mana in rare situation. Frozen Heart Generator by Scrap will now properly remove its attack speed slow when its holder dies. That was the thing. What the fuck? Kaelian Fjord's abilities will now properly cast when targeting an vulnerable unit. Plus of armor plating. Yeah, I see the Fiora one specifically happen. It's kind of annoying. These are double ups. Seraphine tooltip now specifies that she casts the largest group of enemies. Academy Hearts tooltips now states it grants a Katarina. You know, I never noticed that Academy Hearts granted anything. I don't think I've taken it very often. That's kind of funny. Was it really always granting a Katarina? I just didn't know about it. Jinx no longer incorrectly burns enemy for 2.5% of their max health instead of... Oh my gosh, she actually just got nerfed. Wait, I just have how Jinx was... That's so funny. Wow. Wait, so Jinx just got fucking nerfed. She just got shadow nerfed and bug fixes. Jinx tooltip now properly reflects that she burns 2.34% max health per unit. Rather, yeah. Jinx wants... Oh god, that sucks. And 11.24, we intend to nerf melee Jinx's bonus armor and MR. But near winter, however, we're happy with the power level of floating bonus, so we keep reading this number. Interesting. So Jace just never got nerfed. Jinx is getting a shadow nerf instead. Overall, I think this is a healthy patch. I think I am very excited to play this patch tomorrow. I think things to look out for in particular, I'm going to keep repeating it, is going to be Imperial. I think still, like, some of the reroll comps are going to come back to the metagame. I think like, stuff like Shaco reroll has been very underutilized, but it's very powerful. I think Urgot's still going to be okay. Maybe drop a little bit. I think we're going to see a lot more Yone come back, just because like the power level should be evening out a bit more, and we should see more of the 4-cost carries performing again. You know, stuff like Jhin is still going to be fine if you hit the early game board. I think we're going to see a lot more Arcanist for sure coming back. I think especially like this change makes it a lot more interesting, because like it should make it like really easy, like a 3-star Ziggs, right? Your fucking benches is just awful. Remake them. It also does make it a little worse because you can't find the Vex. I think Heimerdinger in particular is going to be one hell of a unit. He's fitting in so many compositions. He should be one hell of a crank. Yordle 6 might not be fake anymore. It might actually be composition. And again, this is mostly because of Heimerdinger. So that's really, really interesting. And, you know, if your bench not being as clogged, I definitely want to try it later on stream tomorrow. And, you know, try to get that funny pop-off game. But, yeah, overall, I think this is really healthy changes. Socalite 2 nerfs is my favorite thing we've seen all patch. And, yeah, I'm really, really excited. If you got this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. You're just listening to a crazy man ramble for fucking, what was like, almost an hour. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. I'll be live tomorrow over on Twitch. You can catch me pretty early, around noon, 1 p.m. EST. And if you want to see more TFT from me, as I, you know, try to get better on this journey, and you just pump out that good old content, make sure to sub to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you haven't. God, my YouTube voice is completely gone. No, I'm a practice big prayer. We'll be better with the next patch. But for now, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Have a nice day, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.